Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, Bruce Dickinson here from Iron Maiden. Yes, indeed, Miss Whiplash herself, Mistress Carrie, is here to unchain your brain.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 251 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. This week, my guest is Dario Lorina, a guitarist originally from Massachusetts that now calls Vegas his home. He's currently a member of Black Label Society and has started a new project called Dark Chapel. They released their new album, Spirit in the Glass, on February 28th. Dario became a professional musician at the age of 16, playing with Jenny Lane and with Lizzy Borden. And I got to catch up with him to talk about his new band, to talk about playing with Zakk Wylde, and where to get the best Italian food in Vegas. So allow me to introduce you to Dario Lorina from Dark Chapel and Black Label Society. What's up, Dario? Thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
Wait, I got to ask you this first. I read this online. Born in Boston, true?
Yes, born in Boston. I was born in Brockton, actually. I grew up in Carver.
You can tell by the accent.
Yeah. It's not an easy one to lose.
When I talked to Chris Daughtry, his wife is from Brockton. And he was like, you don't mess with my wife because she's from Brockton. And you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes. Yep. And WAAF was one of my favorite stations as a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I love that.
Yep.
And totally ironic that you end up in Lizzy Borden.
Yeah, I know, right? I started playing with Lizzy when I was about 19, but I was living out in Vegas by that point, so.
But I just mean because of the local reference.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
It's just so crazy. Boston is known for having a really passionate rock community, and so many amazing artists have come out of quote unquote Boston. You and I do it. You're not from downtown Boston. You're from Brockton and Carver, but you say you're from Boston because nobody knows where anything else in New England is but Boston outside of New England.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't say I'm from Vegas because once I start talking, people are like, well, that's, wait a second, what's going on here?
Yeah, your accent is really hard to get rid of. I went to broadcasting school, so I had to work really hard to try and get rid of it. But if I'm drunk or I get pissed, I'm like, you motherfucker, it comes right out.
Yeah, yep.
And people that are not from Boston, do they always, what do they ask you to say? Because they always ask me to say stuff.
Yeah, park the car in Harvard Yard, that whole line usually.
Yeah, and cars don't park there.
Yeah, yeah. But you don't really realize that's how you talk until either you hear yourself back or when people start pointing it out, you start to hear yourself like, oh, wow, I guess I do sound like that.
I came up with a different phrase to teach people how to talk with the accent. Hurry up and make supper, you fuck, I'm wicked starving. Let's have grinders.
Yes. Yeah.
It kind of puts
wicked,
it all in there.
That's also a big word there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how did someone that grew up in Carver and Brockton listening to WAAF acclimate to living in Vegas? Because I'm headed to Vegas soon, and when I go out there, if it's too hot, I literally melt.
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of a Boston winter, basically, just the opposite. So it definitely takes a little bit to get used to. My blood is probably definitely thinned out a little bit as far as going back to Boston in the winter. You really feel that cold, but yeah, no, it's hot. There's no denying it. I don't know. You have to be in the water in a pool or inside in the AC.
You can always put on a coat, but you can't take your skin off.
No, I mean, you could just think of it as a sauna. You go out there for like 15, 20 minutes, think of it as a health perk kind of thing. But no, it's definitely hot. Yeah, and I think it's definitely gotten a little hotter every summer here. I think we were at like 117 last year, which was, as long as I lived here, it was never really that hot. But yeah.
And there's so many rock and metal artists that are living in Vegas now. I mean, you get the guys from Five Finger and Flat Black. Corey Taylor lives there now. I can't imagine having that proximity to the Strip and all of those distractions and like just being home laying on my couch binging something on Netflix.
Yeah, what's funny is you kind of forget that the Strip is there. Like as a local, I don't know. Sometimes when I get to the Strip, I'm like, oh wow, there's a whole world going on over here that's 20 minutes away that you don't even realize. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It's definitely become a hub for a lot of people for sure.
For anybody that's not familiar with you, you started touring with Jani Lane from Warrant when you were 16 years old. I was driving my mom's Chrysler LeBaron station wagon with the wood on the sides when I was 16.
Yeah, I just, I started playing guitar young. My family was musical, so I was around music, and once I started playing guitar, it's like it just consumed me, and that's all I thought about. When I got into like middle school time, it's just if somebody thought they were going to be a doctor or a football player or whatever direction they were headed, I just thought I was going to play guitar. Whether that was delusional or not, I was just like, I'm going to be a guitar player. But yeah, so I was around 15, 16, and I mean, those summers were like, I'd wake up, play guitar all summer, and then all day go back to bed, and that was pretty much my middle school years. But I saw an ad on MySpace, because MySpace was big at the time, that Jani was looking for a guitar player. And my root, like my home base of, what I was first inspired by, I mean, I was a kid hearing like Van Halen in the 90s. I was really young, but that was like magic to me. So I loved 70s and 80s guitar-driven music. So when I saw Jani was looking for a guitar player, I was definitely familiar, and I just sent a bunch of emails to this ad that I saw on the bulletin board. So there'd be like, all those emails would be in the top of the inbox. And they got back to me. We started going back and forth, and they had me record some Warrant songs. I panned my guitar one side of the Warrant song, the other side. And I sent it off to them. And then they were like, yeah, let's, have you come out and meet Jani in LA. And I met him in a rehearsal room in Hollywood, and we jammed. He played drums, which I didn't know how phenomenal of a drummer he was. He played drums and sang like Uncle Tom's Cabin and a bunch of the Warrant songs. And yeah, a few weeks later, it worked out. We were on the road, and that was pretty much how that happened.
It's a really long list of frontmen that came from behind the drums. There's a lot of them.
Yeah. And then I can't think of who I was just reading about the other day that I didn't realize was a drummer. But yeah, no, I guess they have a lot of timing is instilled. So it's a good place to come from.
You touched on it a little bit. I have a theory about music, and I want to hear your take on it, that there's different phases. There's two phases of your musical identity. There's the first part, which is the soundtrack to your childhood. So the stuff you forcibly listen to, right? The stuff that your parents got on, older siblings, cool uncle, neighbors, whoever. And then you hear something that you make the conscious decision that you like. And from then on, you're different. So what was the soundtrack to your childhood? And then what was it that changed everything for you?
I mean, soundtrack to my childhood was definitely like whatever was being played on those Boston radio stations. And that was a lot of Metallica and Alice in Chains, all that metal that was happening. So that was like, what I was listening to at the time. But then, of course, getting introduced to stuff by my dad, like Queensryche and Dream Theater, which was like my first entry into prog. And I discovered like Symphony X after that. So it was a lot of 70s, 80s, and 90s rock and metal. But then like later on, like discovering like Rammstein, and then like this band Alcest that I was introduced to is like a kind of like a black metal atmospheric kind of thing that I really loved. So that was, several years ago, but that, when I started to get that influence, it kind of that was never something that I thought I would kind of listen to. And then I just started to fall in love with it. And I love a lot of those bands that have those sounds.
The 5th anniversary of AAF going off the air just went by, and it still blows my mind that it's been 5 years. And when I talk to people that didn't know about those famous radio wars and try to explain to them how crazy radio was, like rock radio was in Boston at that time, they're like, there's no way. And I'm like, oh man, you have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I was probably too young to understand what was going on there, but I mean, yeah, that was definitely the soundtrack. It was WAAF, and if I remember correctly, 94 HJY was another one that was a cool
in
rock
Providence,
station.
yeah.
Yeah, so those two were like the main ones. But, you know, the Black album was, you know, Metallica. That was a lot that I was getting listened to, like on the way to take a guitar lesson, driving through rainy Boston in the afternoon. It was like the Black album that was playing a lot.
That is the best-selling album of the entire 90s decade of all genres of music. Did you know that?
No, but
17 million copies and counting. It's crazy.
It's incredible, yeah.
I bring it up all the time because my gene pool completely neglected to give me any musical genes whatsoever. My musical career began and ended in the marching band with my clarinet, and it never went any further. I ask all the time because there are so many people that grew up in a musical family. There were instruments around all of the time. But then there are other artists that thought they were the only musician in the family and then found out that generations back there were musicians that they didn't even know about. So you touched on it earlier. You came from a musical family. It was around all the time?
Yeah, my dad played drums. You know, my uncles, one played guitars, like an awesome guitar player, and he sang, and another uncle sang, and one played bass, and my mom, you know, was always taking piano lessons at the house. So I was just around it, and, you know, my dad was always taking me to concerts as a kid.
What was your first concert?
Little Richard.
Yes! What a good one!
At the Music Circus. I can't remember exactly where that was outside of Boston, but
Isn't the Music Circus, wasn't that on the Cape?
Yeah. I forget exactly, but yeah, down in that area. Because Carver was kind of like halfway between Boston and the Cape almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first concert. And I confirmed that the other day because, Little Richard.
Oh, what a good one.
Yep.
What came first? Guitar, piano, drums, pots and pans?
Probably pots and pans. And then tapping on my dad's drum set. And then they were probably like, yeah, we don't want to have to lug around this for you. So here's one instrument. Here's a guitar, you know. But yeah, when I was 6, I got a guitar and that was that.
I joke all the time that when you become a parent, you live in fear that your kid is going to want to play one of 3 instruments, drums, violin, or bagpipes, because either of those is just the most painful learning curve ever.
Yeah. Well, luckily in Boston, there's basements that you can kind of like shut the door and be forgotten about. But yeah.
But there's a lot of bagpipers, bad bagpipers too.
Yeah. It's, you know, a lot of Irish.
So you learn to play the guitar starting at 6 years old. Do you remember what song it was that you finally got it right and you were like, oh my God, I think I'm getting good at this?
I don't know. I still wonder if I'm getting good at it, but the first song that I, like the first guitar lesson I had, so I was probably 6, 7, I walked in and I asked the guitar player, I wanted to learn Surfing with the Alien by Joe Satriani. And he was like, yeah, here's an A minor chord first. So that's where we started. And, but like I was trying to play, you know, Metallica before I had a guitar lesson. Like I was using the whammy bar. I had no idea what I was doing. And I thought I sounded like Metallica. That was like what I was first trying to mimic. But yeah, I don't know the full song, the first full song that I learned, but Surfing with the Alien was the first one I asked to learn.
Well, allow me to tell you that you've gotten pretty good at it because I've known Zakk Wylde a really long time. And there's no way in hell you'd be playing guitar in Black Label Society if you sucked.
Yeah, still working hard at it.
The first time that I went backstage at a Black Label Society show and saw Zakk's dressing room with a juicer in it, after all of those years of crazy partying, I was like, this is a new era.
Yeah, this must have been kind of recent then, or within the last 10 or 11 years.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Because I remember the non-juicing years.
Yeah. Well, I've only been in there for the juicing years, but yeah, that juicer gets a lot of use back there.
I asked Will Hunt this when he got the gig playing drums for Tommy Lee. I even asked Miles Kennedy this because he plays rhythm guitar in / featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. When you're in a band with someone that is as proficient at their instrument as Slash, as Tommy Lee is behind the kit, as Zakk is as a guitar player, how intimidating is that at first? And what did Zakk do to make you comfortable?
I was so psyched to be jamming with Zakk when I first started playing with Black Label that it was just kind of like the train was off and rolling. So, I mean, maybe that first show, those Marshall stacks felt like they were 20 feet high at first. But, I mean, he's so awesome. It was, you know, you kind of felt comfortable right away. And, you know, of course, Zakk is phenomenal. And JD on bass is an incredible musician, as is Jeff. So, like, you're just learning from everybody. And being put in a, you know, situation like that is just like challenging you to grow all the time. So you're absorbing without realizing that you're absorbing.
One of my favorite memories from my time at AAF was on the Ozfest, Black Label's on it, pre-juicing years. And we did a contest because the Yankees were playing the Red Sox at Fenway. And obviously you tour with Black Label and you're from Massachusetts, so you know what a diehard Yankees fan he is.
Yep.
And we had a contest where you could go and watch the Sox-Yankees game at Fenway from behind home plate with me and Zakk.
Amazing.
And so we're sitting there, and Zakk shows up in all the BLS regalia, right? I think he got into Fenway with the chain wallet, which I still don't know how he did it. And we're sitting in the expensive seats at Fenway, the ones behind home plate. So all the guys in the golf shirts are like, who's that scary, hairy guy over there?
Yeah.
And then word started getting out that Ozzy's guitar player was in the section, right? Zakk calls over the hot dog guy, you know, the ones that carry the big giant metal steaming suitcases through Fenway, and bought hot dogs for the entire section of these rich bankers sitting with us. And he spent the rest of the game taking pictures with all of those guys at Fenway. And the worst decision I ever made was betting that my Sox would beat his Yankees. And the bet was whoever won got to make the loser wear the other team's jersey on stage at Ozfest. And I had to wear Yankee pinstripes on stage at Ozfest in Massachusetts. And I got booed.
Yeah.
The last time I talked to Zakk, we literally laughed about it for 5 minutes because he was like, man, I know that those fans up there love you, but they hate the Yankees more, man. You were getting booed.
That's an amazing story. Yeah, that sounds like Zakk. That's awesome.
Have you dared to bet him on the outcome of a Sox-Yankees game since you've been in the band?
No. Nope. Haven't gone there.
Don't do it because the Sox will let you down. Trust me. I still have nightmares of wearing Jeter's pinstripes on stage at the Xfinity Center in Mansfield.
Yeah. Well, I could have taken advantage of that more so with when Tom Brady was still with the Patriots. I could have bet Patriots Giants, but you know.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
That was just a bad year. We're not talking about that. One of the things about Zakk is that he doesn't stop. And he's always, literally, if you sit in a room with him, he's always playing guitar. And because he doesn't stop, he has always got a bunch of projects. So obviously, when the announcement came out that he's playing with Pantera, for the Black Label guys, that gave you a lot of downtime to start Dark Chapel. So I kind of want to talk about, is that why the band started? Because you had all of this downtime because Zakk is just too busy?
Yeah, not necessarily. It was, I mean, I had Dark Chapel in the creation process for a few years, and the timing just ended up working out that Black Label had downtime and Dark Chapel was ready to come out. So it just kind of worked out like that. But yeah, no, I've been working on it for a few years, just getting it all together, finishing the writing, getting it recorded and packaged up. But yeah.
When you work on a project like that, when you're already part of something so successful like Black Label Society, when you take that finished music, do you bring it to Zakk and ask for his opinion? Because the idea for me, the non-musician, of making something so personal and then kind of giving someone else the ability to critique it, that is so scary to me.
I sent it to him when I had a handful of the songs done and they were mixed, and he was digging it. But I had the album pretty much done, the 10 songs ready to go. So, yeah. But, yeah, he was digging it.
How does it start for you? Because, like I said, I'm completely inept when it comes to making music. So is it a lyric first? Is it a melody first? Is it a riff first?
For me, it's riff, because I'm coming from my home base of guitar playing. So, I'm just hoping the singing falls into place after that. But, yeah, it starts with a riff, and then I'm usually like demoing it out in Pro Tools and kind of coming up with a rough draft of music, because I look at it like a continuation from the instrumental albums that I did in the past with Mike Varney at Shrapnel. So I'm just continuing that as far as what I would be writing. And now I'm just in place of a guitar solo in the verse, I'm putting lyrics and vocals. So, but yeah, for me, it's mostly starting with the riff or like a piece of piano music that I'm just sitting around with.
It comes up a lot on the show how amazing technology can be when you're creating music. But for rock and metal specifically, that there's kind of a line where you can go too far with making it too perfect. So can you talk to me about, because you're talking about recording into Pro Tools, so obviously that gives you the ability to really digitally manipulate whatever you're doing and perfect it to the point where it's like looking at somebody's face that you can tell had too much work done. That there's just something that's a little too perfect about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like to try to focus on like capturing a performance take, and that's with everything, guitar takes and drum takes. So everything feels, as natural as it can. And I'm still using amps that I'm miking up a cabinet that's isolated. And so that's my approach. And I like everything to feel as played as possible, like a band has played it. So yeah, Pro Tools gives you the ability to go in and touch some things up, but I like to keep it as natural as possible.
I love doing these interviews where I get to see the work areas of musicians, the creative rooms that they have set up. I got to do the same thing as make my own studio, which I absolutely love. And behind you have got this whole guitar collection hanging on the wall. Guitarists collect guitars.
Let's see if I can.
How many do you have now?
There's a lot up there. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's a lot of the Wild Audios, and I have a couple of my Gibsons up there. But yeah, see if I can get this back in the same spot without it falling down. But yeah, we'll try it out.
Dean DeLeo told me from Stone Temple Pilots that you don't have to try to be a collector, but when a guitar gives you a song, it's really hard to part with that guitar. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. Yeah. That would sum it up perfectly for me. Yeah.
What's the most prized guitar that you have in your collection? Was it given to you or did you buy it?
Yeah. Let's see if it's up there. It's, it's 4 over from the front one, the front orange one. It's the Gibson Les Paul, which was underneath my dad's bed as a kid. And like, that was like, the holy grail, because I started with like the Samick Stratocaster type. And then the Les Paul was under there, and I would always pull it out and be like, yeah, you can't play that until you learn how to play guitar. So once I got to that and I was playing it, it was amazing. So that guitar has been with my dad, and then it's been with me this long, and that's pretty much my daily play. Like that's the one I pick up when I'm sitting, and I actually recorded the whole Spirit in the Glass Dark Chapel album with that guitar.
I love that he was like, don't disrespect the Les Paul. Don't play that until you can play it.
Yep. Yeah. Once you're ready, you can take it downstairs. But yeah.
Please tell me that you have that first guitar still.
Oh yeah.
You do have it. Some guitarists say that that's how they upgraded, is they traded it in and they wish they never got rid of their first.
Yeah. No. It's hanging in the house. Yeah. But no. I like to try to keep everything that I have. I try to keep.
When you look at the guitar as an instrument, and I've had this conversation with multiple guitarists, because as someone that can't play, it's wood and 6 strings most of the time and some dials. How has every riff not been written already? How has every melody on the guitar not have been written already? What makes the guitar endless?
That is a hard question to answer. I mean, it's just, everybody's approach is different, so you're going to get some kind of different outcome. I mean, I'm sure things can sound similar, but everybody's unique, so it's going to come out differently.
Can you talk to me about the quest for tone? When I talked to Slash, I told him that he had one of the most recognizable tones in all of rock music, or in all of recorded music. And he took that as a serious compliment, because he said every guitarist is constantly in search of the perfect tone. So where do you think that tone comes from?
When I was like coming up as a guitar player and I was a kid, watching guys that I looked up to and talk about tone and how to get good tone or whatever, and, setups with different pedals and amps, I never understood what that actually meant. And then as like you're just growing as a guitar player, your ear is dialing into what you want to hear. And that's either from things that you've listened to for so long that you've like absorbed and you're kind of trying to either recreate or like hear back as you're playing. But for me, it was just kind of amps that I loved when I finally got them was like the 5150s, because I loved Van Halen. So that realm of tone that was happening, I loved. And then I got to the 800s. And for me, it's like right now, it's my perfect. I'm sure that can evolve over time, but it's definitely starts in the hands, as most guitar players would say. And then the amp is the power that's going to amplify that. It's really the hands, the guitar, and the amp that's giving you the tone. Of course, like pedals can add to that a little bit, or what speakers you might have in the cabinet might alter that a little bit. And then like when you're hearing those guitars recorded, like the microphones that are in front of the cabinet and where they're placed and what preamps those are going through can also, enhance that tone that's coming through. But it's really all in the player.
Did you master Surfing with the Alien finally?
Satch Boogie, I definitely got to, but I learned a lot of Satriani in those coming up years. And one of my favorite tapes, like when I was a kid playing guitar, was, I think it was called Merry Xmas, that was played around Christmas, and it was like all guitar players like Steve Vai, Satriani, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, like instrumental versions of these Christmas songs, and I loved that. I loved that album so much. But yeah, I definitely learned a lot of Satriani over the years.
He came up to the studio years ago and gave me a guitar lesson. And he was like, Carrie, your long fingernails are going to keep you from being able to play guitar. And I was like, Joe, it's not just the fingernails. Trust me.
Yeah.
When you look at, every guitar player has got guitarists that they obviously respect, that they've been inspired by, but there's always that handful that shaped and inspired you to be the player that you are. So you talked a lot about Metallica inspiring you, but who are the guitarists that you as a player were the most inspired by when you started playing?
So Van Halen was definitely number one, because that was like magic coming through the speakers. And then other guys that I like discovered would be like, Zakk was a huge influence. I loved Johnny Winter, John Sykes, Paul Gilbert, George Lynch, Warrant DeMartini. That would be like the main beginning list, I would say, for sure.
It's so crazy that there are very specific milestones in the evolution of rock, that everything was different after that, right? So you can talk about Elvis on Ed Sullivan. Obviously, the Beatles on Ed Sullivan completely changed everything again. And so many people talk about seeing Kiss the first time, hearing Eddie Van Halen the first time. AC/DC Back in Black gets mentioned a lot as kind of something that changed so many people and inspired them to become a musician after that, that there's like this handful of things that inspired you and everything was different after that. It's incalculable what rock would sound like if Eddie didn't show up.
Yep. With the growth of guitar playing and the push that he had on that, and everything, the tone, like the cool effects that he was using. Absolutely.
That you hear players like Nuno Betancourt just talk about like Eddie just showing you the way. You know, that you can't even imagine what life would have been like for the instrument if he wasn't around.
Yeah, completely agree.
When you go to put the band together, obviously you're not doing it all yourself. So like Zakk had to do, bringing in other musicians for Black Label, now it's your band. Where are you going? Are you putting ads on MySpace to find the guys that you're playing with?
Yeah, if MySpace was still there. But yeah, no, I just, through friends of mine in Vegas, finding guys here. I'm based in Vegas, so I was trying to get everybody who was based here. So, yeah, that's where I got everybody. We all live pretty close by, so yeah.
It's something that doesn't even have to happen much anymore with technology, especially through COVID. So many bands were able to kind of live where they wanted to live and share files, but you've got guys that are all local in Vegas.
Yeah, because it's still awesome being able to get in a room and jam, and when you're recording, everybody can be there together. And yeah, but it definitely, it's a nice way to write sometimes, where you record a guitar part or have a whole song and you send it to somebody and they can work on it. And then when you get together, it forms into what it's going to be. But yeah.
I always ask that if I were going to come to your hometown, right? So if I was going to come to Carver, if I was going to go to Brockton, what are like the local places that you miss because you don't live at home anymore that you would take me for lunch, or the dive bar that you love to hang out at when you come home to visit? Where would you take me?
I would probably take you to Mamma Mia's in Plymouth, which there wasn't one in Carver when I lived there, but there's one now in Carver, and probably Cafe Bella in Randolph, I believe. So those would be the two places. I left Boston before I could drink, so I couldn't take you to a bar that I would remember, but those two restaurants for sure.
And now that you live in Vegas, I come to Vegas at least once a year just because of rock radio conventions and stuff that I do. And there's so many choices. But for the people that are locals that avoid the Strip, where are like the little neighborhood kind of cool places off Strip that I should be checking out when I come to Vegas again?
So like restaurant wise, there's two Italian restaurants that I love. Casa di Amore, which is like an old classic Vegas restaurant that's off the Strip. And then Gaetano's is an amazing Italian restaurant. So those two places.
It's funny because I was going to ask you, because we're both Italian, like, is there real old school kind of Northeast Italian food in Vegas that you found?
Those two restaurants are amazing. And Buddy V's and the Venetian, that place is great too. But Casa di Amore and Gaetano's off the Strip. And then like bar-wise, Golden Tiki's a cool like off the Strip bar, which is over in Chinatown area. But yeah, there's a lot of cool places that are off the Strip here in Vegas.
Do you go at all out and do any of the touristy things anymore?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it's nice to like, remember that you're actually in Vegas. But there's a lot of people that are like visiting that are, hitting you up and be like, hey, we're in town this weekend. So that's when you kind of go and do that all over again. But yeah, it's an awesome place.
As a Boston guy that lives in Vegas, you do a lot of touring, obviously, because Zakk is always out on the road in one way, shape, or form. Where's a place that you've traveled around the world that you were really surprised you loved as much as you did?
I love going to Europe because of the history that's there, and like seeing the architecture and just, there's so many different cultures that are so close, like just going from country to country. But I love going to Europe. And then South America is absolutely incredible as far as like the scene down there and the crowds. They're amazing people. So we have a blast going down there.
I have heard that those big rock and metal festivals are something that needs to be experienced by every fan at least once. The road flares, the craziness.
Yeah, like the European festivals.
And the South American festivals.
Yeah, South America is incredible. But I mean, they're doing a lot of that now here with the awesome festivals that are happening in the States.
It took a long time for the United States to kind of catch up. But I've heard so many crazy stories about just how, look, American rock fans are passionate, right? But I have heard from the minute you get off the plane in South America, they're camped out at the hotels, they're following you in the streets, that the crowds are just insane, that there's just another level of psychotic fandom that happens with rock and metalheads in South America.
Yeah, they're amazing people. And we have so much fun when we go down there. So we love it.
The girls from The Warning told me that, Mexico is just a passionate place. And when they're passionate about it, they're passionate about it. And that includes the music.
Yep. And you can feel it everywhere.
Well, you've got the new album, Spirit in the Glass, that came out on the 28th.
Yep.
And then Zakk, of course, is doing a lot of stuff with Pantera. So what's the plans for Dark Chapel to be out on the road? Because my assumption is that you've got to base everything around when Zakk needs you.
Yeah, so we just did our first 2 shows as Dark Chapel, actually opening up for Zakk in his Zakk Sabbath, his Black Sabbath cover band. So we did that a couple weeks ago, and then we're working on a bunch of stuff from there. So Dark Chapel's just getting going, but we're definitely planning to get on the road.
Well, I'm really excited for you. I love seeing a local guy do well. It's like the passionate Northeast music, like the rock and metal scene. We're so happy when we see someone doing so well. And the fact that, you've had this career since you were professionally 16 years old and now really able to kind of craft this band the way that you want it to be is awesome. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm psyched about it.
And now heavy metal is 55 years old. Black Sabbath just celebrated the 55th anniversary of the debut album coming out. So do you consider that the first heavy metal record? I do. Do you?
Yeah. I mean, I had to go backwards and discover all that. But yeah, I would definitely say that's heavy metal number 1.
That was the last song we played on AAF, Black Sabbath, Black Sabbath. We wanted to inject as much Satan as we could into the last 5 minutes of AAF.
Amazing.
Dario, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm going to hit up those Italian places the next time I go to Vegas.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you for having me. This was awesome.
And when you schedule that tour, I am assuming that there's going to be a date in Boston, and I cannot wait to come and see you guys.
Oh, for sure. Definitely let you know.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
There he is, Dario Lorina from Dark Chapel and Black Label Society. The Dark Chapel album, Spirit in the Glass, is available everywhere. And as soon as we get those tour dates announced, I'll definitely let you know. If you want to check out some of his music, you can just check the link for the corresponding playlist in the show notes of this episode. I make a playlist for every full-length episode that features all of my guest music and all the artists and songs that we referenced in the interview. You'll also find all of Dario's links, all the Dark Chapel links, and of course, all the Mistress Carrie links. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and comment on the Mistress Carrie podcast. New full-length episodes come out every Wednesday, plus every weekday you get the Sit Rep. The Situation Report breaks down all your rock news, music headlines, and entertainment updates in about 5 minutes. And you never know when we're going to release a bonus episode. Join me live every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern for my weekly streaming video show, Cocktails in the War Room. And yep, you can always find me on the radio too. Get the details on all of that and more at mistresscarrie.com. The Mistress Carrie Podcast, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network.